Should you get and build Degenbrecher? Short answer, yes. Long answer. This entire video.
デーゲンブレヒャーよ。これはコードネームかって？本名だと思ってくれて構わないわ。契約書は見せてもらったけど、私の仕事は護衛対象が変わった以外、何も変わらないみたいね。
Degenbrecher, Lithuanian-born Caprini. Widely known as the Black Knight, former 3 consecutive winner of Degenbrecher Major. All thanks to her outstanding combat skills, physical resilience, and mobility. But interestingly enough, she has a flawed originium adaptability. For most people, no doubt they will think that winning the major will bring someone great fortune and fame. Especially her, who has won 3 times. But alas, her winning streak is labeled as a threat to the KGCC's interest. And many armorless union, including the Dark Steel, were sent to get her out of the picture. But who would have thought, she prevailed from the assassination one after another. The chase for Black Knight was only over once the chairman of Carlin Trade, Inchiadis Silverash, approached the GCC to hire her as a bodyguard. Seeing that Kazimierz has already bored her anyway, and the assassination will never stop soon, the famous Black Knight then worked under Silverash and Carlin Trade until this day. But not solely because she's trying to repay her debt. But it seems because she finds Yerrick, and people like Silverash match her interest. And now, following the contract between the Doctor and Mr. Silverash, she is currently registered as Rhodes Island operator. Well, ladies and gents, the Black Knight is finally here. After being teased even before the game was released. Our first encounter with her is her being a boss. So how's her playable version? Well, let me tell you, she's even more amazing than ever. Black Knight is our 3rd sword master after Irene. And much like that Spaniard bird, her attack hit twice, and she has a great physical damage potential. But unlike others in her archetype, Black Knight's specialty is also in inflicting debuff. Now this is her stats. Swordmaster in general has an average balance of defensive and offensive. And with their double hits, they should be able to defeat low defense targets with ease. But often struggle with some higher defense enemies without their skills, attack boost or defense reduction. Their DP cost also almost touches the high category. But in most stages, you should be able to deploy them pretty early with certain Vanguard. And interestingly, compared to other 6-star Swordmaster, Black Knight's stats are lower than Irene and Chen. But not a big difference of course, and we don't judge people just by their stats. Next up, let's see her talent. Her talent 1 is very important. It is the source of her unique debuff and damage when combined with talent 2. So, whenever she attacks, she has a 10% chance to deal critical damage and inflict a new debuff called Frighten for a few seconds. Frighten is a very powerful effect because it will disable the enemy's normal attack. Pretty much the opposite of silence, and generally more useful. And even in CN, Black Knight is still the only one who can inflict this. Sadly, 10% chance is crazy low. Depending on her normal attack alone, is such an unreliable way to inflict this new effect. Luckily her skills will help with that. As for talent 2, this is the ability that helps her dealing with bulky targets, as this will allow her to ignore some percentage of enemy defense. And this is the kind of defense ignore that scale with the target's defense, which is great. But she will only do it to those inflicted with Frighten. Considering she can only inflict Frighten with talent 1, and it doesn't last long, you might think it will be bad. But thankfully her skills are designed to deal high burst damage in a very short time. Then this is her potential upgrade list. All of her potential upgrade done a good job in increasing her damage output, especially the extra defense ignore on 2nd talent enhancement. But it is expensive to get there. Luckily, she's fine even without extra pot. Next, let's see her module. She got the X module, which will increase her skill damage, as well as increasing a variety of stats. And for upgrades, it will enhance her talent 1 by increasing the damage multiplier. Overall, the module is good to make her damage much more potent. Sadly, other than damage and a bit of extra defense, there's nothing new added to her abilities. If she's your main damager, you might want to squeeze every damage boost you can get by upgrading the module. Otherwise, might want to put the module on hold, or just unlock the base effect for the time being. Moving on, let's talk skills. You most definitely just use one of her skills, but first let's see her skill 1. Skill 1 is your basic next attack, deal more damage. It's pretty solid for a starter and AFK. But you better use other skills. Mainly because her other skills do better damage, debuff, and guarantee her talent 1 to be active. For skill 2, she will deal big damage to 6 enemies in range, with more damage if the target is blocked. And the hit also guaranteed her talent 1 to be active. Which means if you have unlocked her talent 2, this skill will ignore some of the enemy defense. This skill does a pretty great damage, especially to blocked enemies. And technically, if you want to inflict frighten on enemies for a long time, this should be the best skill to use. But since this is an offensive recovery, the charge time can be irregular and long, especially without SP support. Then time for her best skill. Skill 3 will make her deal multiple damage to enemies in a wide area, flying enemies included. Each hit guarantees her talent 1, dealing critical damage, and a bigger multiplier on the last hit. While attacking, she will also pull the enemies towards her with a medium force, and significant force on the last hit. Simple, yet very effective, and potent damage skill. But the best part is, this is an auto recovery skill, something that none other sword master has. So far all sword master can deal significant damage to the enemies, and you can say the offensive recovery is something to offset it. But it's not the case for our Black Knight. Furthermore, this skill only has 30 SP cost, so you can use it multiple times in a relatively short interval, especially with the help of SP support. Next, let's see what's a skill mastery priority. Skill 3, no doubt. Although there's nothing to game changing like Irene with her S3 for example. But this is the Black Knight's best skill, that you most likely will use often, and you better focus on improving it. The secondary option is her S2, but it's pretty much unnecessary. And if you find it too expensive to M3, but still need it somehow, you can stay at M1. Because it increases the number of enemies she can hit, from 5 to 6. As for her base skills, when in a trading post, skill 1 will increase the efficiency, but reduce the order limit. Further increase efficiency in skill 2, for 5 trade orders, up to 100% boost. So ladies and gents, should you get and build Black Knight? It's amazing that the game did her lore and boss version justice. Black Knight is an outstanding physical damager, as well as being the only one who can inflict frighten. And I think her only notable cons is that her skill 1 and 2 are offensive recovery. But chances are you probably won't even use them once S3 is unlocked. So grab your Orundum, we have a bodyguard to get you. That should be all. Adios.